Okay, everyone, it's just about 1:30. We're a moment away here from Register O'Donnell entering the room. Hi there. Once again, thanks for coming this afternoon. Kind of a unique event for us as opposed to our regular speakers or lecturers or musical programs that we put on here. We've got kind of a working committee here with the commissioner. You're ready to help you folks answer your questions, but we appreciate you signing up. Without further ado, I'll give the microphone over to Mr. O'Donnell.
Great.
Thank you.
I was given a microphone on the way in, so I will use it. My name's Bill O'Donnell. I'm the Norfolk Register of Deeds, and I again want to thank Kevin McDonald. I think you should give him a big hand. He does a nice job. I've heard you had a lot of great speakers, a lot of interesting speakers. So when Kevin asked me to speak, I said, "Why do you want me?" And he goes, "I'm desperate for a speaker." So that's why you got stuck with me today. And we'll talk a little bit. We're here to talk about the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds, and it is a kind of an arm of government many people don't know much about. It's in downtown Dedham. Dedham has been right across from the Superior Court, the Gold Dome Superior Court. It's been very busy. It was busy again today. But when you think about it, the biggest asset most of us have is our home. And that's what the registry deals with. The registry deals with your home. And we have a lot of information in the books. I see you looking at some of the green folder. We have some information, and I was asked by Kevin to talk a little bit about what the registry does, and we'll get to talk about some of the consumer issues. But what the registry is about, it's been in existence since 1793. I don't tell good jokes or I sing, but we have great trivia in Norfolk County. And in the books, there were 4 presidents born here in Norfolk County. Does anyone know who they are? Well, I put you on the spot, but Adams is John Adams, John Quincy Adams. If you're from Quincy, you say they're from Quincy. If you're from Braintree, you say they're from Braintree. John Kennedy was from Brookline, and a lot of people don't realize George Herbert Walker Bush was born in Milton. And the reason I mentioned there's a lot of history is Norfolk County started when George Washington was president. We have records back to 1793. The registry has been located, and you can see the picture at 649 High Street. It's been there since 1903, but the registry has been in Dedham since 1793. And as I talk about what the registry does, it's really about recording land records. And I think the first register back in 1793 probably had the same mission then as it is now. You better make sure these records are recorded accurately, they're recorded securely, they're recorded legally. That's a big thing. It's a legal document because it gives title to your houses and to your businesses. And to make sure that the records are available. Now, they were available back in 1793. The register made sure all the records got in the books. They didn't have copy machines. They would actually write out the documents and put them in the books. You know, someone would come in from Bellingham or Wellesley, drive the horses to Dedham and do it. So the mission's the same today. We have to make sure those records are recorded accurately. But we deliver the services in a different way. It's a much more modern system. How did I end up at the registry? I grew up in Norwood, not that far away. I spent a lot of time at the Babson rink. Wellesley has great hockey programs. I coached hockey, the Norwood High girls team, and so I've been to Wellesley a lot. I'm from Norwood, nearby Norwood. By way of my education, I grew up in Norwood. I went to Xaverian Brothers High School in Westwood. I went to Georgetown University down in Washington, D.C., and then I was very fortunate for 3 years down in Washington to work for Congressman Joe Moakley, who taught you about constituent service, that you should really help. If you're in a government position, you should make it work. Make it work for the residents, make it work for your constituents, and I know that's what we try to do at the registry, and I have a great staff, and we have a couple of people here from my staff, so later on, if you need copies of your deeds, or you need to check whether your mortgages have been paid off and discharged, or you recorded a homestead, we can do that. I came back to Norwood from Washington and went to law school, Boston College Law School. I was fortunate enough to be an assistant district attorney prosecuting crime, prosecuting cases for then District Attorney Bill Delahunt. and then later went into the private sector as an attorney. And I feel like I love government. Maybe like a lot of you, I got elected locally. I was a town meeting member in Norwood. I got elected to a local office in Norwood. But I was doing the law practice. But what I liked about government service and what I liked about being in the private sector is you see what government does right, but you also see some things where they can improve on. And I like to think I took a business approach to the Registry of Deeds. And what do I mean by that? I became register in 2002, and it's been a privilege being register. But let me tell you, and I tell my kids, you probably have kids and grandkids, how modern everything is. When I became register in 2002, there was no email at the registry. The internet was just going. It wasn't that long ago. And I tell my kids that now, and they look at me like I have two heads, But what we've done, we try to modernize the registry. And I think the most proudest thing I did, I have a great team. I mentioned I still play hockey, although I'm playing with people I coached. I'm too old to be playing. But one thing I learned from sports, learned from coaching, there's no I in team. I have a great team, got a great staff. So all these things I talk about before we get into the consumer issues, Kevin asked us to, what are some of the things going on at the registry? The things I'm going to talk about how it's been modernized, is because of the great team we have. We have great employees. We have employees that aren't in a union. My dad climbed poles for the Boston Edison for 38 years. He was in a union. That doesn't bother me. We've worked with the union. We've worked with the non-union. And I think we have, I'm told, and it's not me saying it, attorneys, title examiners, people that use our customer service department say the Norfolk Registry is the best registry. And I let other people make that judgment, but that's what they say. But we're certainly the second busiest. There's 21 registries in Massachusetts, and the Norfolk Registry, and Wellesley's part of the 28 towns that make up Norfolk County, we're the second busiest registry in Massachusetts. So over the years, what have we done? I'm most proud about the modernization initiatives. We've used the technology that was coming. As I said, I mentioned, someone said, when I put a website up, they're like, why does government have a website? Now when you think about the Council on Aging or Wellesley, everyone has websites. But back then it was people saying, government doesn't need that. Yes, it does. If you go to our website, www.norfolkdeeds.org, you can get some of the information that we put in this green folder, information about the Homestead Act, which I'll talk about, information if you're a first-time home buyer, information about if you're struggling or someone struggling with foreclosure. We've partnered up with a couple of nonprofit groups, so they're not charging people. They're trying to help people that may need help or struggling, and we're all one, either bad decision or unfortunate luck, whether it's health or whatnot, that sometimes people around the county need help. So if you know someone that needs foreclosure assistance, we've partnered up with NeighborWorks Housing Solutions and Quincy Community Action Program. And even though it says Quincy, all those groups, part of the deal was they would help everybody, whether they're from Wellesley or Bellingham or Norwood or Quincy. So if you know anybody, and the good thing about it is they're nonprofit, they give you legal advice, but they also give people counseling advice. How, are they spending too much on credit cards? What's the underlying situation that got themselves in trouble? So that was one modernization initiative we started with. Put a website out, get some information. It didn't happen overnight, but now all the information, our mission, and that's why I have a great team. I can say this is what I want to do, but I have a great team that executes on the vision. We wanted to bring all the registry's records into people's homes and businesses. There were over 13 million land records, legal documents recorded at the Registry of Deeds in Dedham at the Norfolk Registry of Deeds. All those documents are online. And it's permissible. The state legislature wanted it done. We had to work with them on legislation. The federal government was involved. A lot of parties were involved, and the mission was to get the documents online. So all those documents back to 1793 are online. So if you go to our website, www.norfolkdeeds.org, you can look up the information yourself. If you entered Book 1, Page 1, that's the first document. It was a deed from Foxborough. it's all available. The indexes have been integrated. So if you wanted to, we mentioned the presidents, if you wanted to run John Adams's name, every John Adams back to 1793, those documents would come up. So all that information is available, and we've also tried to make it relevant as far as modernization initiatives. When I first got there was really no disaster recovery or business continuity planning. And again, that's from me being in the private sector, because in the government sector, it wasn't always there. And what does business continuity planning mean? Well, what happens if that registry is damaged by a fire or a flood? People forget in New Orleans when they had the floods that those records were destroyed. When they had the hurricane. And we're right near the Charles River. So what we've done is we've tried to run the registry like a business. So your deed to your house, all those records have been backed up. We backed them up by law. We have to do it by microfilm, and we make sure that microfilm is stored off-site. And we do tape drive backups. And this information is stored in Massachusetts, in Iron Mountain, but also they have a renovated nuclear bunker, believe it or not, facility down in Rhode Island. All this information is stored off-site. That, to me, is running government like a business, to make sure that you're doing things so the records are protected. And we put a generator in, and you might say, well, what's the big deal about a generator? We were the first registry to put a generator in, so with all these snowstorms, we've never shut down. I mean, there's a couple of us that live locally. I'm from Norwood. We just get in, and in a snowstorm, even though the governor and everyone's shutting down the roads, we're in there in case someone needs to record something. And we also opened a disaster recovery office off-site, so that if something happens to the building at 649 High Street, and I hope this doesn't happen, we can at least get up and running and get going at this site. It would be a struggle, but at least we, if you're trying to sell your house, or maybe your grandchild or your nephew or your sons or daughters are trying to buy a house, if there's a bad snowstorm or some commotion, we can at least get these documents recorded. So all these modernization initiatives, electronic recording is another one. And what was that? Believe it or not, it was authorized by the federal and state government. Now an attorney here in Wellesley can do the recording, do the closing in the office and transmit it to Dedham and have it recorded, as opposed to you used to have to show up all the time. And I miss the people showing up. We still have, computers. You're welcome to come by 649 High Street. We have 50 computers spread around. But those are some of the modernization initiatives we've been doing at the registry, and Kevin asked us to speak about it. And again, a lot of it, I think, the principal job is you people rely on these records. The title to your house, again, it's a sleepy arm of government. Many people don't know what the Registry of Deeds does, but if you think of it, these records are so important because it's the title to your house, and we're taking steps to protect them. We're taking steps to make sure that we deliver quality services. And the lawyers appreciate it, and I hope the residents do. And maybe, many times people don't realize it, because when you bought your house, you just assumed everything was done correctly. And when you sell your house, you assume everything's done correctly. But I just want to tell you, we're taking steps to make sure everything does go correctly, and that's what the modernization efforts were about. Again, a lot of the lawyers in the real estate economy is a big part. That's of the economy, depend on the registry. But we see more and more people utilizing the records for genealogical and historical research. So I want to just at least speak to another project we did. I mentioned how the registry started in 1793. From 1793 to 1900, they hand wrote the documents. Now, I went to St. Catherine's School in Norwood, so we had to make sure we know how to read penmanship. But believe it or not, now my kids are out of college now, but some of their friends don't even know cursive. And I didn't do it for that. I did it because these documents were all handwritten, and at times were tough to read. All those documents, over 450,000 documents, were put into easy-to-read cursive text. So if you go online, and the lawyers like it because it makes it easier for them, but more and more people are using it for historical and genealogical research. If you enter book 1, page 1, that first document, it's all handwritten. You hit another icon, the typed version comes out. And a lot of historians like it. As a matter of fact, David McCulloch, who recently passed away, a Pulitzer Award-winning author, actually wrote a nice note saying how he thought it was such a great service and he wished more places did that because it would have made his job of doing research, especially he wrote a book about the Adamses, that much easier. So we're trying to do things like that make these records relevant to what goes on. And the beauty, too, of all this modernization, there were two things. One, we can come out to groups like this. Back in 2002, we did. We came out to groups. We had office hours in the town halls, but we didn't have the ties to the computers. So we can help you instantaneously get that information. All this information now is online, and we can help work through that. So that's very important, and it's been very important about community outreach. But the big thing is to talk about some of the consumer issues, I guess, that the registry is involved in. First of all, and some of this is I'm going to talk about, and I know you've had police here and things like that, but some of the scams. There's a group out there that solicits, mostly the elderly. They solicit for $10, they'll get you a homestead form. And we'll talk about the homestead in a minute. But if you go on our website, you can download the homestead form free, or the homestead forms we have in the green folder here. So if you get a letter like that says for $10, and they don't even fill out the form for you, they just give you a blank form, don't fall prey to that scam. And I'm also going to talk about these various deed scams. In the green folder, I always get nervous. I'm an elected official, and this was in the Herald. No elected official likes getting in the Herald, but it was about the scam, especially the title in it. It says "Dirty Deeds Not Done Cheap." My wife was like, "What did you do?" But what this was about was, for $59, this group would solicit from you people and from residents all around the county, and say, "Hey, you need a certified copy of your deed." And if you went on their website, you would think you couldn't get up in the morning unless you had a certified copy of your deed. It's important. It's good to have. And we can certify copies of your deeds today. We do it for free when we come out here. But don't pay, at that time, $59 for a certified copy of your deed. It was a scam. We wrote to the Attorney General's office, the Secretary of State's office, and I recognize it's legal because, and my eyes are going, I have to wear glasses now. In the fine print, it says, oh, this is a solicitation. So that makes it legal, but it doesn't make it right. So if you know people that are getting these solicitations and these scams, just the best way to combat it is for me to talk to people like you, and you just spread the word to people. If you need a copy of your deed, come directly to the Registry of Deeds. You can either come by 649 High Street. If we're out at an event, we can get you a copy. Or I'm very proud that we instituted a customer service center. I mentioned my dad climbed poles for the Boston Edison for 38 years. When you're telling them and having stories about what you're doing at work, we're modernizing, we're computerizing. I remember he said, well, some of us don't want to know anything about computers, don't care to know anything about computers, don't want to know anything about computers. So that was the genesis of the customer service center. If you call our customer service center at 781-461-6101, that's again 781-461-6101. There is staff there. They have access to the computers. They can help you. Has your mortgage been paid off? Did you record a homestead? And they try to help and facilitate answers. Or people just come by 649 High Street and come by and do that. Now, I mentioned $59, this solicitation, and again, the Attorney General's office and the Secretary of State's office did do consumer alerts. They put it on their website. Don't fall for that. And WBZ Radio did a story. It made the Boston Herald. There's been people doing it, but it's still happening. There's another group, they upped their ante, $86. They send out something that looks like a tax bill. And Hank Philippi Ryan from did a thing because of Millis, they call me Hank, and someone from Millis wrote to them, and she did a story, and it came to the registry. And I'm saying the same thing to her that I'm saying to you. Have people don't fall for these scams. And I think it's important to mention that because even though there's been great publicity, and even though, Hank Phillippe Ryan, Channel 7, it still happens. And now there's another group, that was $86, and they wouldn't even send you a certified copy of your deed. They would just send a copy of your deed. There's another group now, it's over $100, and it looks like a tax bill. They make people think it's like a tax bill, and people send the check in and they get a copy of their deed. So don't fall for that scam. It's still happening, even though there's been publicity from the Attorney General's office, Secretary of State Galvin, and also the media. And I think, again, I was asked just to talk about things like that. So please don't, fall for those scams. Another consumer issue. And again, Kevin wanted to make sure we talked about some consumer issues, is the Homestead Act. The Homestead is the state legislature wrote about the Homestead. It's in Chapter 188. And it's been around for a long time. But it's funny, my parents, my mom was from Rosendale, my dad was from Brighton, moved to Norwood in 1961. They never recorded a homestead, even though you could have back then. But back then, no one had access to attorneys. No one had access to big estate planning or counselors. And I think no one had access. I'd like to think coming out to groups like this, there's more education. And also, people have educated themselves by accessing information on the internet. So many of you might have a homestead already, but it is a statute. It's been in existence in a long time, and I'll mention what the homestead is. And I probably identify why you should have one. I mentioned, attorneys get a bad name. I'm an attorney. If you talk to 10 different attorneys, the criticism is you get 10 different opinions. But when it comes to recording a homestead, I would say 9.9 out of 10 attorneys would recommend that you record a homestead. And what is it? You can see it's a 1 or 2 page form. And it protects your home, as long as it's your principal residence, against the forced sale. And what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, what doesn't it protect against? If you don't pay your taxes to Wellesley, even though you have a homestead form, they could foreclose on you. Or if you don't pay the bank or your lender off, even though you have a homestead form. But I parked out in your beautiful center here, and a lot of cars out in the parking lot. So most of us drove here. If you think about it, just say you drove here, and some of you might have $100,000 of car insurance, and you think that's a lot of money, and it is. But you hit someone in the crosswalk, they got severely injured, and it's a $500,000 case. Well, the advocate for that injured party is going to be chasing you for that money. In your insurance company, you only have $100,000. That's probably the best reason you should have a homestead, because what the homestead does, it doesn't prevent the trouble you're in or the case you're in, and it doesn't prevent them from chasing you for the money. But the homestead prevents the forced sale of your home, because it's your principal residence, and that's in the statute. The state legislature sets these fees that these documents get recorded. The register doesn't. I got to collect it. If I don't collect it, I'm indicted. But the state legislature has kept the homestead form at $35, a relatively small amount compared to the other fees they've increased. And why? I think they recognize what we said earlier. The biggest asset, the biggest financial asset most of us have are our homes. And, people should take steps to protect their home, and a homestead does that. And there's a couple of other protections in the homestead. For instance, if you have a written homestead recorded at the registry, and you go to sell your house, the creditors can't swoop in and take that money, again, for a limited period of time of 1 year. If you have a written homestead recorded at the registry, and you just say you had the misfortune your house burnt down, and the insurance company gave you a check to rebuild your house. If you have a written homestead recorded, creditors cannot come in after that money, again, for a limited period of time of 2 years. So there's all these little protections in the homestead. Yes. Yes, a good question. Of late there hasn't been. There's been some changes that I'll talk about, but she's right on the money change. It's a $500,000 protection. It was, when I first started, $300,000. It did go up to $500,000. The good news is I think most judges reflect the intention of the statute. They're not going to split your house in half. So they don't, say, hey, only 500,000 is protected. At least that's been the experience I see in courts. They recognize the intent of the legislature is to keep the house off limits. But you got to remember, and anyone that's been up at the State House, I've tried to work on legislation that helps consumers and also modernizes the registry, but in issues like this, there's another side. There's groups out there that don't want consumers to have protections and things of that sort. So that's a reality. I think it should be increased. The legislature has done a good job on other things. They've put some of these things in that are good for the consumer. For instance, myself and my fellow registrars, there's 21 registries across Massachusetts. A lot of people don't realize your homestead was terminated. When you refinanced. I had 3 children that went through college, and a great community bank, great rate, back then. And I said, can you take this one sentence out because it's going to kill my homestead? And of course, the bank has attorneys; they don't. So I would do the refinance and then record another homestead. And why do I mention that? No one reads the 30 pages of mortgage that you sign, but there was a one sentence in these typical mortgages, and again. Some attorneys say it didn't cancel your homestead, but I read it that it did. And what I did is I always recorded another homestead because I didn't want 20 years from when I refinanced because my children were going to college. I didn't want a situation where someone says, well, you refinanced, your homestead was terminated, and now you got yourself in a little trouble, whether it's a car accident or credit card debt or something like that, and your homestead's no good. So I just kept recording homesteads. So maybe the legislature hasn't increased the amount, which I think they should, but at least they did put a change in the statute where even though that language is in mortgages now, it doesn't kill your homestead. So that's a good consumer protection. The effective date of that was March 16, 2011, so you may want to look at when you put your homestead on. But if you put your homestead on today, and you refinance tomorrow, and the mortgage had that language in there, it doesn't kill your homestead. So that's a good thing. Another consumer issue is mortgage discharges. Now, and I know when people sometimes glaze over when I talk, but please feel free to interrupt me. But I know sometimes when I'm talking mortgage discharges, people are kind of like, what is he talking about? But a lot of times after a group like this, I've had people come up and say, look, I had to go through that. I wish someone had told me about that because it's what you said. It's not as easy as it sounds. What's a mortgage discharge? Well, when we borrow money, the mortgage has to get recorded at the registry. The lender wants to make sure they get paid. When you pay it off, there should be a mortgage discharge recorded. It's a 1 or 2 page document that tells the world that mortgage has been paid off. And, what's good, working with the state legislature and the Attorney General's office, there's more teeth in the statutes now. What happened is a lot, especially the bigger banks, and I'm more of a community bank person. You have a lot of good local community banks in Norfolk County. They just didn't get the homesteads recorded. Or sometimes maybe the mortgage discharge, they just didn't get them out. We've had people come to office hours saying, I'm selling my house, and they say I need a discharge. I paid that thing off 20 years ago. What are they talking about? What they're talking about is it's the lawyers that are doing the closings, whether you're selling your house or refinancing, want to make sure that all those mortgages are paid off. And as people go, it was paid off 20 years ago, but they want to make sure that discharge gets recorded. There's more legislation, more effective legislation now, which gives some teeth and makes sure the banks get these discharges to people. And in fairness, sometimes at office hours, people bring their documents and I say, do you mind if I go through them? And you look and there's a discharge from 20 years ago. It wasn't recorded, but in fairness to the consumer, the bank didn't make it clear to them that they should take that discharge and get it recorded at the registry. So the reason I mention that is on our website and actually in the green folder, there's a document that says, where has my bank gone? And the reason why we put that in, where has my bank gone, is just imagine, some banks have changed. I'm from Norwood. I had money in the Union Warrant Savings Bank. I think it's Citizens. I wouldn't bet the farm on it, but this has federal and state contact information. It says, where has my bank gone? And it's on our website where you can call these state agencies and federal agencies and find out what's the name of your bank from way back. And you got to remember, in the 1990s, some of these banks went out of business. And others merged. And again, I'm a big believer in community banking. If you go down to the local community bank, it's just a matter of getting to the right person. And you could say, hey, I paid my mortgage off. I need something called a mortgage discharge. I find community banking is much more responsive. The smaller banks, they'll look it up. Hey, yeah, you paid it off. Probably the bank president or the bank officer is in the next office. They get the discharge signed, and all you have to do is bring it down to the registry and get it recorded. It's some of the bigger banks, and that's, I gave you that story where the person said, it's chasing paper, and sometimes that's not the easiest thing. Anyone that's, dealt with, customer service in some of the bigger banks or things like that, it's just a matter of getting to a person. So if you need to get a mortgage discharge, I find going to the local community bank is a lot more easier process. And I don't want to scare you. It's just a matter of putting the work in. You got to, especially with the bigger banks. And again, what you want to do is when you get that document, it's usually a 1 or 2 page document, and it will say, oh yeah, your mortgage has been paid off. And I congratulate all of you if you're in that situation. You just want to make sure it gets recorded. Another consumer issue, I did talk about a couple of the scams, but the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, says the fastest growing white-collar crime is property and deed fraud. Now, you probably heard a lot of those ads on TV, and I'm sure those ads are meant to generate business for them and maybe, kind of scare people into doing things. However, some of those commercials, they have ex-FBI agents, they have the criminals. There's some truth. It's happened in other areas of the country where there's mortgage and deed fraud. And what we've done, we did it back before all these commercials took place. In 2015, we started here in Norfolk County a consumer notification alert program. It's an anti-fraud program. If you want to sign up, Jonathan from my office here is very good at helping people sign up. You have to sign up online, and it works like this. I've signed up. And I get an email. I get an email anytime a William O'Donnell document gets recorded at that Norfolk Registry of Deeds. Now, I'm William Patrick O'Donnell. I'll get an email with a book and page reference if it's a William J. O'Donnell. I say, oh, that's not me. Or if it's a William Patrick O'Donnell, but he's from Quincy, that's not me. I get the email and I can look it up. Now, if you're not good at looking things up, call our customer service center. They will help people. But to me, getting an email is a small inconvenience to pay when it deals with the biggest asset for my home. Now, how will it work? There could be a time, and I check with my wife, and I get an email, and I show her, and I'm like, did you sign that document? I didn't sign it. It could be a deed to my house. Or it could be an equity line that we didn't sign. Now, this does not prevent the fraud. I want to be clear. I was in the district attorney's office. I know about prosecuting crime. We didn't prevent the fraud, but at least you can get on it right away. You think when my parents bought a house in 1961, they didn't worry about the title. They didn't worry about any of these people pulling scams. You bought the house, and then 30 years later, you sold the house. But if we get that notice, I would have to contact the law enforcement agencies. We have links on our website, www.norfolkdeeds.org, to the law enforcement. You probably might have to get an attorney. And I just mention it as it's a service, because a lot of people ask, oh, hey, I saw something on TV, title lock this, should I do it? Again, if it's your Norfolk County residents, we're here in Wellesley, it's Norfolk County properties, that's what we've done, and a lot of people have done. It's a free service. I don't want to scare people in this sense, and I gotta speak about Massachusetts state law. What's good about being here in Massachusetts, I don't think we've seen as much fraud. And again, I know attorneys have a bad name, and some attorneys could do fraudulent actions and have, and it's unfortunate. But in Massachusetts, attorneys are required to be at these closings and to certify title and to do things. I have relatives in California, Washington State, out west. It's like the Wild West. Like, there's no attorney sometimes involved in these closings and title companies. And I think because we have attorneys doing the closings, and I know attorneys get criticized. I'm an attorney. I valued the work I had to put in after I got out of Boston College Law School. You have to pass an exam here in Massachusetts. I would never jeopardize my license to practice law. And I think most attorneys are like that. So that's why I don't think you've seen as much fraud here. And there's also more statutes about notaries here in Massachusetts requiring them to get proof of identification, whether it's a passport or a license. It doesn't mean fraud, is eliminated, but I just think there are things in Massachusetts where we haven't seen it. But I want to say this, there's a statute that says, if your house was fraudulently conveyed, it's a void transaction. The title to your house is still good. So if I fraudulently took this poor lady's house and conveyed it to this person over here, that person might be out some money. There's no doubt they're going to be hurting. But the state law says that she still owns the house, that a fraudulent deed, a fraud deed, does not convey good title to this person. Now, this poor person might be an innocent buyer and is going to be out some money. But I just wanted people to know your house can't be, taken out of, there's statutes that make sure that you have, good title, and I think that's really important. Those are some of the consumer issues. I will say this, as far as our operations, I mentioned how we've done a lot of modernization with the technology, and I think that's important. It's very important. It's very important to deliver services in a quality way, and in this day and age, you have to use the technology to do it. But I still want to say we do it the old-fashioned way. I love history. That's why we just this month we're opening a genealogical resource center at the registry where we have Ancestry.com computers available for free that people can use and do research. We also are one of the few registries. I pride myself on modernizing the registry, but I don't want to be the first register. I'm the 11th register dating back to 1793. All of them printed books. And you might say, well, books is old-fashioned. We still do it the old-fashioned way. We still print books. We just put book 41,500 on the shelf, because people still come in and do it the old-fashioned way. They still look up the documents. We still print the indexes. All of it's online, and if you want to be modern, you can do it that way. But we still have people that come in and do it the old-fashioned way. And I always say, hey, wonder if the computers go down. At least we can still do business. So, when I mention we're a modern operation, I'd like to think we're a modern operation, but you still got to respect history and learn from history. And I think the proof of why all this works, and I'll certainly open it up to questions. There was a COVID-19 pandemic, and there was a lot of things done during. None of us knew what it was unheard of what was going on during the pandemic. The Norfolk Registry of Deeds was open and operational every workday during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the way we did it, you had to set up teams and all the things that were going on. We didn't know what we didn't know. But I think the real reason we stayed open and operational is we had done all this modernization initiatives. All this information was online. People could come to the building and put it in a mailbox, but you could record electronically. So all these modernization initiatives got us through the pandemic. And so to me, that's the proof of why I think the Norfolk Registry is the best registry, the best run, that some of the registries couldn't do that. Their documents aren't online. Some of them don't have electronic recording in the land court. We do. And I didn't do it because I knew a pandemic was coming. Who knew that? In 2017, I just like trying to, I like being involved. I enjoy the job. we worked on legislation, and Governor Baker was the governor at the time, and we worked with Paul McMurtry and other, your local legislators, Alice Peisch, Representative Garlick from Needham, and we worked on legislation that allowed for electronic recording of documents in the land court, because there's 2 sections of land here in Massachusetts. And Norfolk County was chosen as a pilot program. And some of the registries still don't have the ability to record documents electronically in the land court. We were the first one to do it in 2017. I think some of it probably goes, to me, coaching still. I still a coach over at Boston College, a women's club hockey team. We go to nationals. It's what my dad said. If you want to do something, do it right. So that's why I did it. Hey, let's record electronically on the land court. If we can do it on, the recorded land side, we should be able to do it on that side, and we did. And I think that's why we got through, the COVID challenges. And I was very proud. I'm very proud of my team, the staff, because D'Angelo's and Papagino's, they were picking community groups or organizations. They had a COVID-19 Hometown Heroes Award, and they gave it to the Norfolk Registry and the employees, because I think that was a credit to the employees that we were open and operational every workday. And actually, it was very busy in 2020 and 2021. Not as busy. We've had a couple of years where 330,000 documents were recorded at the Norfolk Registry of Deeds. But in 2021, it was 205,000, which was high compared to some of the other years. So here we are in COVID times, 2020 into 2021, and we're recording over 205,000 documents, collecting over $84 million. And again, it doesn't go to the registry. We make money for the state and the county. 90% of that money goes to the state and comes back to the towns and local aid, aid for fire and police, for schools, for social services programs. Some of you, there's a thing called the Community Preservation Act. Some towns have adopted where they we actually collect monies on documents, and it goes to the Department of Revenue and makes its way back to the towns if they have adopted Community Preservation Act for open space, for historical preservation, for housing. So again, there's a lot to the Registry of Deeds. Kevin, just said, hey, try to educate, educate people about it, and that's what we've done. I'll also put a plug in. We try to be active in the community. Yes, we come out to community groups, but maybe it was the nuns at St. Catherine's, the Xaverian Brothers, or the Jesuits. I don't know. We have a lot of programs that we try to help people. For instance, we do a food drive, but more importantly, we have, if you go to our website, every community has food pantries. And yes, we do a food drive, but they need food all the time. We try to help them out. We have a collection of clothes. It's called Suits for Success, but we collect women's clothes, men's clothes, and we've partnered up with Father Bill's Place in Mainspring, down the other end of the county, Thrifty Threads in Brookline, Needham Circle of Hope, and also the veterans. We donate these clothes to the Veterans Administration in Jamaica Plain, in West Roxbury, in Brockton. And again, any veterans, we thank you for your service, but we've partnered up with the United States Marine Corps and the Toys for Tots program. So we have that at the time. And so some of these donations of clothes, women's clothes, men's clothes, we've gone to St. Francis House in Boston. We make donations. So if you ever have a chance, you might be cleaning out your closet, feel free to contact us or come by 649 High Street, and we'll take the donations of the clothes and spread it through to everyone. I'm glad everyone got the black folder, and I'll end on this. I love history. I actually love being registered. It's a privilege. 225 years ago in 2018, that's when Norfolk County was founded. The registry started 1793. We did a book. And we picked out people with deeds, and there's some history in it, and some of them are older people. Actually, believe it or not, Paul Revere had property in Canton. There's a deed. Some of it is just people I've intersected with. I don't run anymore. I tried, but I ran the Falmouth Road Race, and was not doing so good at the end. You're sitting there exhausted, and someone else was exhausted, and her name was Sunita Williams, and she's the astronaut. She's up, and she's in the books we've done, whether it's the 218 book, or when we renovated the registry, we did another notable land records. Allie Raisman, we had property in Needham as well. So we have some historical people. We have some people that are around now. Clearly, I hope you enjoy that book. But we just did a function in November. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs, John Santiago, came out, and I think this has been the best one. And as I said to all you veterans, thank you. We remember our veterans, and again, that's not in your book. We ran out of them. But now it's a new fiscal year. The county commissioners sometimes are tough on our budget and wouldn't let us print. But we're gonna be printing this book out again. So if you want one, email me at registerodonnell@norfolkdeeds.org. But in this book, we did some of the same things. We a little education about the different branches. Our national anthem, and actually there's some ties to our national anthem. We have a little picture. Catherine Lee Bates, who had property here in Wellesley, also born in Falmouth. That was we have a little thing on the Star Spangled Banner, but her song "America the Beautiful" was a close to being the national anthem, believe it or not. So we have some good stories about Medal of Honor winners. We've tried to tie some of them. We try to tie in. Some of them were recent veterans, others from a long time ago. But we hope again in all of that. I just my real job here at the registry is make sure your records are protected. But there's so much history in these records. Yes, the registry is about business, but I love history, so I enjoyed this book. And if people want it, just please email us, and we'll make sure we get it. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Yes. Oh. No, I would love to, because the more I talk outside of my home, my wife doesn't have to listen to me there, so she'll be thrilled with it. No, I would love to. I know we have spoken to local, like the Walpole Historical Society and Commission, Foxborough, some of the groups, Plainville, like different groups have invited me, and we bring our, information to them, because there's a lot of interesting information. Some of the deeds actually list everything that was in the house, because remember, these deeds are back to like 1793, and it's kind of interesting. Now it just lists the price, but back then sometimes they would list all the information and all that was in the house. Yes, would love to. Yes.
I was going to ask, there's a lot going on, not necessarily here, about waters taking over properties.
That's a good question, and that question, the question was about squatters in Massachusetts, and believe it or not, comes up. That question gets asked a lot when I come out talking, and again, you hear these stories, so you gotta be aware of it. But to me, I hope even in Massachusetts, it hasn't come down to, if I go back to my house because I was away on vacation and there's someone in the house. And again, you're coming as a former prosecutor. If you can't call the police up and they're called breaking an entry. So I hear what's going on supposedly in other states. I'd like to think, even in Massachusetts, you could call the police and say, these people are it's a breaking an entry. So it's something to be aware of for people. You hear it in other states. They're saying people somehow got into the house and now they can't get them out. I would like to think that the laws in this country have not gone that south that you can't call the police and say, those people went into my house. And you got to remember, breaking an entry doesn't mean you break the window. It means you broke the boundaries of the house. So if you went in and through an unlocked window or it's an unauthorized entry. So hopefully I would call the police. Yes.
So can I go on your website and find my homestead deed?
Two things. You said deed and homestead. You can go on our website and find the homestead if you recorded it, or the deed if you recorded it. Or you can, afterwards come up to see Jonathan and Ed, and we can look it up. No, the homestead's two different things. The deed is a 1 or 2 page document. When you bought your house, the seller has to bring a deed. And usually they might have had an attorney or the bank attorney at the closing. Remember, there's always a bank attorney involved that wants to make sure the bank gets good title and that you as the owner gets good title. So that is the deed. That gets recorded. That gives you ownership of the house. The homestead, which we did a little talk on, that is a 2-page document where if you record it, you get the protections that the state legislature has given under the state statute. And so, yes, we can look it up. And believe me, a lot of people, you won't be the first one. When we come out, they're like, I can't remember if I recorded a homestead or I didn't. And we look it up, and they, we were just at office hours in Medfield the other day. A person thought they should have had to record a homestead and had the forms all ready to go. And we said, we looked it up. He forgot he had done it. We made a copy. So we can look it up. Yes. It's just unfortunate for that county, but you could check with Natick is Middlesex County. So no, it's now a lot of the registers across the state, I think, use us as an example, and are having these services, having consumer notification services. So you may want to check with the Middlesex Registry, but that consumer notification service is just for Norfolk County property. But I know other registers out in Worcester and all across the state are trying to implement, and some of them have implemented that service. So you may want to check. I'm not sure. No, our system is only predicated on the records that we have control over, which is Norfolk County. There are 28 communities that make up Norfolk County. And speaking of which, if you're going to do research, sometimes if you're in Boston, you have to come out to Dedham either by computer or come to 649 High Street, because everyone looks at Brookline and says, wow, that's an island. How did that happen? Well, people don't realize parts of Boston were part of Norfolk County. South Boston, Roxbury, Dorchester, Hyde Park, Reedville, West Roxbury were all part of Norfolk County, and then over time got annexed into the city. And that's why you see Brookline kind of by itself. But just a little trivia there. Yes? Sure. And this is Luke. He's doing a great job for Wellesley Media, and Jim Joyce. I think that's great that they're putting this out. Yes, we mentioned we still do it the old-fashioned way. I do mention you can record it electronically. However, a lot of people still come by the registry. We have recorders that are there, and people can walk in and record their homestead. Again, if you've recorded it, we can print the copy out for you right now. So, and when documents come in, I'm still one of the few registries that send the documents back. Everyone, the other registries would send it to the attorneys, as do we, but I was an attorney. Some of the attorneys just throw it in the file. We made sure when you bought a house, we sent the deed out to you, because a lot of buyers, weren't even aware that sometimes at the closing they don't even look at the deed. They just have it recorded. So we do it the old-fashioned way. We would send out the deeds to people, and still do. But if you need a copy of anything, you can come by our customer service center at 649 High Street and print. They'll print out a copy. But that's one of the beauties of coming out to these groups. You just come by and we'll try to make copies. Yes. Well, all deeds that were recorded in Norfolk County land are accessible. Now, I'm trying to remember, in 1911, that's when Reedville came out. So Dorchester, I think, was part of Boston then. But whatever time period Dorchester was part of Norfolk County, those records are in Norfolk County. So I would have to look up. In fact, it's in this book. We have the years that those communities went into Boston. I actually think it's in the blue 2018 book. And so when Dorchester was part of Norfolk County, and again, it goes back to 1793, that land, the documents that were recorded would be at the registry. But once they went in Norfolk, but once they went to Boston, that's it. It's in Boston. And in this book, we do have a list of when those, the annexations into Boston. So I believe in 1906, Dorchester was part of Boston, so that would be Suffolk County. But just say in 1800, that Dorchester document would have been recorded and is still available online or by the books at the Registry of Deeds. Yes?
Just a follow-up question. So you spoke about the modernization initiative. With everything being electronic now, cybersecurity risk is, of course, a big concern. So was controls around to ensure the security of all of the documents part of your modernization program?
It is, and to your question, in the blue book, if you go a couple of pages in, it says 225 years of recorded history, and it has the dates that the towns became. Yes, that's still a concern, and some people may not, and maybe have followed. County government at times, there's a reason county government has gotten abolished in other parts of the state. And county government took away our IT department. I don't know if people maybe don't follow it, but the registry was part of a lawsuit. I filed a lawsuit. Actually, the decision just came down June 28th, where the judge said that the county commissioners violated the law and not allowing us to appoint. Imagine this day and age, not allowing to appoint a chief information officer and a technology officer. We had an IT department even before I got there. Register Barry Hannon back in the 70s had one. Paul Harrell had one. And I had an IT department. That's how we did all this. So that's still a work in progress, because to me, the priority, one of the biggest fears that I get worried about is cybersecurity risk. And you take you eliminate an IT department at the Registry of Deeds. So anyone that knows me from, I used to, be in the DA's office and was an attorney, we filed suit. And we had an attorney, but then they wouldn't pay for the cost of our attorneys. They put zero in my budget, but they didn't realize I was an attorney. So I litigated it. Ed Wheeler's an attorney here. We litigated it. I want to thank Ed. And we won both cases. And of course, they're appealing it and waste of government resources. So the registry spent zero to get the court to say that we should, back then that was a bad decision. It was a bad political decision. But you got to follow the law in America, and they didn't follow the law. And both cases we've won, and I'm only mentioning it because I hope they don't appeal this next one. Just you lost. And instead they've spent $200,000, big Boston law firm against me and Ed, zero, and we win. And it's a waste of taxpayers' money. So anyway, that's but the reason I feel so passionate about it, and sometimes, as I tell people, being right is overrated sometimes. It was a tough process. But the reason that motivated me is we live in this world of cybersecurity risk. How could you make such a reckless decision? Because I really believe everything I talked about today is because I had an on-site direct report to the Register of Deeds, IT department, chief information department staff, and I don't have that anymore. And the reason why, any of you who have been bosses, or maybe you're not a boss, but whether you're a boss or not a boss, when you're a direct report, you know the job has to get done. So when the boss says, hey, we need to get this done, there's action. And that's how government should be. And we don't have that. So that's one of my worries moving forward. I hope things are done more collaboratively and we can kind of get to a better point. But that is my biggest fear, is the reckless changes they did will jeopardize not only all these modernization initiatives we did, but the cybersecurity risk is just too inherent in this day and age. Yes?
Can I download the key of my house from your website to my own PC and Now, if I can, do we consider that print out be official?
Yeah, by law, yes, you can print it out. It will say it's not official, but it's still good information. A lot of attorneys, they pay a fee. It's kind of run like a business. So, but you can print it, or we can print it out there for you today. It says not official business, but at least it gives you the deed. It gives you the description. Yes.
Can you have something like a transfer on death condition on your house deed?
I always tell people, maybe that would be the next speaker Kevin could get, some estate planner. I know that might be above my pay grade as far as estate planning, the different things that get done. One thing I will say to this, though, about transferring property, and I was an attorney, I may not be an estate planner, and Kevin might get somebody in that can answer that. Sometimes people add their kids onto the deed jointly. So if I die, and my son, if I name one son, I got another son and daughter, they're not going to be too happy. But just say, I put my son on. If I died, it went to him jointly. But I will tell you this, if you ever think of doing that, because I was involved in a case once, I'll tell you his story. Person comes in, I've known for years, and he's like, I don't know who I'm more mad at, Bill, my sister or my mother. And I said, why? Well, my mother told me that she put my sister's name on the deed. But now she's evicted my mother because mom never retained a life estate in the house. She just deeded it to the daughter, didn't retain any ownership, didn't put life estate, and so there are, I can mention that as a real estate, some real estate experience. But to your question, maybe Kevin can get an estate planner to come in here and give some real detailed discussion. But I mention that story because anytime you do something to a deed, there's a legal consequence to it. And that's why I think it's important to get counsel, legal counsel, when you're doing these things. And I also pride myself, Ed's an attorney. We have 4 attorneys on staff. We have more attorneys on staff at the Norfolk Registry than any registry in Massachusetts, because I think you should have attorneys on the other end receiving these documents and making sure everything is done properly. That's what we've done for 2 decades, and hopefully it's been a privilege to serve as the register. We continue it, and because it's been great. Life estate is the best way to protect if you're doing things, putting other names on. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Well, the big thing is to record a homestead, and that's the big thing. Make sure you record a homestead. And the state legislature defines elderly in Massachusetts as 62 and above when it comes to the homestead. And what we see, a lot of people who maybe when they were younger recorded a homestead, we see, you mentioned recording with someone else. They wait till both people are over 62, and then they record an elderly homestead. Because it's the filing fee, and wait till both people are over 62. Why do they do that? Well, I mentioned I know there was an earlier question, and maybe the protections will go up, but the reason why people file elderly homestead, there are some attorneys, and again, back to people have different opinions, but I am of the opinion that the reason you do the elderly homestead is if and don't say this because my wife's not 62, she'll be, I'll be getting in trouble. But the reason why my wife and I would do it when she gets over 62 is there's an argument to be made that you can stack the 500 and the 500, which in essence gives you more protection than when you're under 62 when it's just 500. It doesn't matter. My wife and I have a homestead. It's 500. So that is one of the reasons people wait till they're over 62. And if you own it with someone else, the good news is, and some other people go, hey, should I do the elderly homestead? Well, yeah, they're over 62, but they're the only ones that own the property. So, the filing fee is relatively minor, but, you don't have to do it. But in certain situations, it makes sense to do it. If you own the property with your spouse, or maybe you own the property with a sibling, as long as that property is your principal residence, you can put a homestead on, and that's why people kind of wait till both spouses are over 62, because there's an argument that can be made by attorneys. And again, it may not be, a lot depends on court, but you cross that bridge when it comes. You want the ability to argue that I'm stacking the coverage. My spouse, my wife has 500, and I have 500, and we're both over 62. Just gives you a bigger level of protection. Nothing is a substitute for good insurance, though, which probably is another speaker you could have, but having a lot of good insurance, umbrella policies, and things like that.
So if I could just
Yes.
clarify for the second part, so you have to take the affirmative step of filing the additional elderly homestead?
That's a good question. Again, I'm sorry, but yeah.
I just wanted to be clear, so let's say somebody, purchased a house when they were 42, 20 years pass, and they still own the same house. Do you have to take the affirmative step of filing the additional elderly homestead, or is there some automatic, happens as a consequence of just now?
You would have to do a new homestead that you're 62 and above. But it's a good point because, for instance, we mentioned how the homesteads went up from 300,000 to 500,000. And hopefully it goes up again. The state legislature didn't say you had to do a new homestead. You recorded a homestead, you got the benefit of the increase. And hopefully in the future they'll continue that, you get the benefit of the increase. But that's not the case with the 62 thing. You have to kind of take the affirmative step. Yes. No, you're welcome. Great questions. Well, listen, thank you so much. I enjoyed speaking with you. I want to thank Kevin. I want to thank Wellesley Media for that's a great service that they're doing, filming here. And it's been a privilege to be your Register of Deeds. And thanks very much. You guys were great. Thank you. Thanks. Sure. Yeah, nice. Yeah, go. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it.